everyone, welcome back to X-Rays, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm your host, Miles, and today's conversation is one that feels especially timely in our data-driven, AI-saturated world. Because we're talking about knowledge, how we manage it, protect it, and more importantly, how we make sure it remains an asset rather than a vulnerability. Because, as the saying goes, knowledge is power, but only if it's in the right hands. We usually feature the always insightful Ian Erskine from ACI Global, but since he's been globetrotting, we're joined again by another brilliant mind from the same powerhouse. Someone whose expertise bridges strategy, leadership, and transformation. He's a continuous improvement expert who's worked across industries, managing change, knowledge, and quality, helping organizations recover, grow, and adapt with agility. His mantra is simple but powerful. I help you achieve successful outcomes. I'm glad to welcome back an international business leader, change management consultant, innovator, and mentor at ACI Global and eQuip, Marcus Batten. Hi, Marcus.
Hi, Mars. Thank you very much for that intro.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's great to have you again. And our topic today is both technical and philosophical, Marcus, knowledge management and the encryption of data. In an era where information is everything, Marcus, protecting it isn't just about cybersecurity, it's about transparency, trust, and continuity. So let's unpack that. Because people often say knowledge is a company's most valuable asset, but these days it can also feel like it's its most vulnerable one. Why is encryption now such a critical part of effective knowledge management, Marcus?
I think encryption. Not to get me wrong, there, encryption has always been part of knowledge management. As you manage information, data, people, people capability, their skill levels. That is all part of the knowledge. What is the inherent capability knowledge within a human? Knowing that, do you want to tell your opposition that they're that capable straight away? Or do you want to keep that quiet so you can get them performing and achieving targets that the opposition wouldn't even know about? So knowledge management is data and stuff, capability, currency of capability, and in a competitive world, and is bluffing sometimes by knowledge management, creating an alternative view in the opposition, so they think they've got to do more to defeat you than they really have to.
Mhm.
So encrypting knowledge, managing knowledge is vital. And now with the digital flood of knowledge,
Ah,
it's more critical than it's ever been in terms of you as a user of knowledge being able and cognizant of what you're doing with that knowledge in a careful way, in a managed way. So the encryption is one for security and stopping outsiders seeing that, but also internally you want it encrypted and used by the capable people or the capable systems to a plan, so that it's not just thrown out there for everyone just to have a go at.
yeah.
So the more common sense you put into it, the more organization and sorting of that information to be used by certain systems, pieces of kit, engineering systems, the more credible your outcome becomes, the more efficient, effective the outcome becomes. So encryption is also conceptualized in being there so the right piece of machinery does the right thing at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than seeing all the information, that piece of kit may be better just being given a little bit of information, but you have to encrypt that data and manage it and have it available to be used by the right equipment, the right database at the right time. So encryption involves a lot of thought. From a very funny point of view, well, it wasn't, it was in military operations.
Yeah.
We used to run a system where we had our common orders that we'd give out to people.
Mm-hmm.
But then just before the operation, as an example, I brought out one of Shakespeare's plays as a book, and I
Okay.
gave a copy to each of my commanding officers, and I highlighted certain pages with a code, and so phrases in that book, and I encrypted the operation with a book by Shakespeare live biologically at that point in time. So
Uh-huh.
then anyone on the radio would hear, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? And they'd be there going, what the hell are the British
Yeah.
doing? And then next thing, 5 shells would drop on their trench.
Huh.
So encryption
Okay.
used in an operational way
Yeah.
can be very dynamic and imaginative, and
Mm-hmm.
teaching leaders and team leaders how to use that sort of encryption can be absolutely dynamic in an operation, and encrypting the right way of behavior. So again, training behavior parades to enhance a sense of strength when you might have developing capability that you're not quite there yet, but you want to build image,
Yes.
build capability. So encryption loosely also covers those human aspects. And ACI, we look to developing those capabilities within the human,
Yes.
so that they
People.
know. And loose lips sink ships. You've got to make sure your people are trained, encrypted in some respects, to not
Mm-hmm.
blur information,
Right. Mm-hmm.
because that can be your biggest destroyer from an information point of view.
Correct. I agree. And it's clear
Yeah,
that encryption is more than just a digital shield.
yeah,
It's the lock on the vault of a company's collective intelligence. And
absolutely, absolutely.
and in an age where one leak can undo years of trust, Marcus, it's a business necessity, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And
And without the right consideration and encryption and care with your customer,
uh-huh.
um, you can have done five
Right.
years of fantastic work. 1 minute of failure
Done.
in encryption, your business is gone.
Yes. And
Um,
mm-hmm. And that brings
and
me to another
trust
angle.
goes as well. Yeah.
Right, right. And that brings me to another angle, Marcus. Beyond the tech side of it, we're also seeing more companies focus on trust and transparency. And of course, aside from compliance, how do you see encryption supporting those deeper layers of confidence with employees, partners, and even regulators?
Um, well, effectively, whether you're specifically accurate, um, you've got to show capability that you're having a go at keeping stuff safe,
Uh-huh.
keeping stuff robust in its security. So you've got to be able to show how you protect against breaches, how you protect against potential for that to happen. Not whether it's happened to you or not, but are you prepared just in case it happens?
Yes.
Have you got a system that can deal with that? And the amount of times over the years I've been called a drama queen and things
Why?
like that, because I've sort of built these concepts with them, with people that are seen as, well, it's never happened to me, so why should I worry about it?
Uh-huh.
And we tend to say, well, be prepared, have a fallback position
Mm-hmm.
if a scenario happens to you. Not that you can deal with that scenario, but you suddenly see it's happened. Where's your approach to how you react to that? Have you got a way to deal with that? Have you got these systems in place? Not that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to make it look fantastic on a database or a workflow, but you've actually achieved an outcome of preventing problems or
Yeah.
minimizing the damage. So building that capability of knowledge management awareness, and where you should put uh, preventative measures in place
Mm-hmm.
just in case something happens. Don't
Yeah.
spend too much money, but have
Mm-hmm.
an approach that's ready to deal with an unforeseen circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Like an
Um,
insurance.
an insurance, yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
preparation, and at least a fallback to say, if suddenly you're hit by all this stuff, what is your fallback to take a breath,
Mm-hmm.
focus on what's just happened, take corrective action, resume where you're at to start moving forward again.
Mhm.
Have you got a generic plan like that? It doesn't have to be spot on accurate, but are you ready with approaches and ways to deal with things?
Yeah.
Um, and the left field one is, have you got a procedure in place to deal with totally unexpected?
Mhm.
What is your system? It doesn't have to be right, but have you got something ready to have a go, do something,
Uh-huh. Yeah, like a
rather than
backup
sit there in
plan.
a corner screaming because it's all gone wrong?
Mhm. Yeah.
Which is a tendency nowadays where people just, and I guess in the media, it's quite good for people to, journalists to have fantastic stories of all of this going wrong.
Mhm.
And we've had some recent examples in Australia and around the world of telecommunication companies, some having data breaches, banks having data
Yes.
breaches. Um, I mean, I remember a long, not a long time ago, but in a company bringing call centers in
Yeah.
and deciding to put a new set of PCs on the desk, they left USB ports in all of them
Mhm.
without thinking who the people were sitting at the desk in the call centers.
Mhm.
Well, obviously, some people decided they'd take customer data using the USB ports and were selling them in the marketplaces.
Yeah.
And that's because they hadn't just thought, well, you've put a system in place
Mhm.
to allow that to happen very easily.
Mhm.
Um, and very often, the other encryption to keep an eye on with your management teams is word of mouth.
Mhm.
It's not new, but there's less training that way. If you have this data, you have this information, you're reading it, here is the layer at which you should be talking about it and the environment where you talk about that.
Yeah.
So generic policy making for knowledge management is a lot more needed nowadays than it's always needed, but there's been less of a focus on the approaches to knowledge. So, the integrity and confidentiality of information breaches, cybercrime, the things we've spoken about, you and I. And then obviously the regulatory compliance. If you're not aware of your regulation,
Mhm.
uh, you should have an internal system to spot check people as to
Right.
how capable and current they are with the approaches.
Mhm.
Because you can think you've done everything correctly, but you've missed one piece of regulation out. And it doesn't matter what you've done. If you've
Mhm.
blown your regulation, that's a lot of money down the drain.
Yeah, much more.
Um, yeah, much more. And as you said earlier on, the sense of trust.
Mhm.
You can have done lots of things right, but the one glaring thing you make a mistake on can zero everything else.
Correct. And so there should
Yeah,
always be security protocols.
absolutely, absolutely, and information protocols, the um, behavior protocols, the way of using information should be laid out in an operations manual.
Mhm.
How do I handle this information? So you go and check your ops manual wherever it happens to be. Um, there should be generic advice for the
Mhm.
individual as to how they set something up.
Mhm.
And there should be generic advice in there as well to say, if the manual doesn't tell you something, come back to this person
Mhm.
and state that, bring it up with them. So continual advancement and process development should be there as a methodology and not discouraged.
Mhm.
And there is a bit of egotistical problem quite often develops. Well, I've written such a super process, I'm never wrong.
Mhm.
And some people get like that in the organization. So to have someone else come along and say, it's not
Mm.
quite right, we should do this.
Yes.
You want to encourage that sort of feedback.
Uh-huh.
And that reinforces your security, your knowledge management, your encryption, that you have a system of feedback listening
Mhm. Yeah.
and listening to what's going on out in the field.
Mhm. And that framing, Marcus, is very interesting. Encryption is like a silent trust builder. You don't see it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it quietly keeps everything intact. It's like, I mean, in sales, when trust is there,
yeah,
business flows naturally. But when it's broken, everything else crumbles, collapse.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've got to, with this whole environment,
Mm,
train the leaders, the team leaders, the boards of directors, that you've got to allow people to have a go,
mhm,
but you've got to allow feedback mechanisms to bring back information and have teams that review stuff on a regular basis.
mhm, right.
Because much as it might be perfect, you still need to have a generic review
Mhm,
systemized within your organization
mhm.
to review that knowledge, to review the processes, to review the encryption, to see, nothing's ever perfect all the time. Things change, the world changes around
And who
us.
knows?
Yes, yes, and if you're building on, wanting to keep trust there, your employees want to know that, when they're going by what you've got in the operations manuals, talking to
Mhm,
their customers, that they're able to give credible information
right.
and not have information they can't trust to refer to their customers.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
if you build the sense of worth and trust within the team, and you train them to communicate with the same effect,
Mhm,
um, and they're willing to listen to feedback,
yes.
and I think, the safeguard for encryption and information is the ability to take feedback,
Mhm,
take environmental feedback, take human feedback, and
mhm,
then process that, review it. And if you need to make changes to the systems, have a system in place that allows you to apply that feedback, make the relevant changes, and
mhm.
then communicate those back to the team so the team are aware. They don't have to be 100% aware, but
Mhm.
they're in a system where they can engage and
Yeah.
continually
At least they know
aim
what's
for the
going
same.
on.
Yes, yes. I think the human basics
Oh,
are there.
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah,
Since you said that, let's proceed to the human side of all this because
yes.
encryption can sound very technical, Marcus. Key management, data security, algorithms, but ACI Global has always emphasized that it's about people too, as you mentioned also earlier. How do you help organizations connect these technical safeguards back to competence, culture, and a mindset of quality?
Well, first of all, we have an absolute range of courses that cover, technical measures and building competence and culture and quality that you've just mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, and first of all, is really training people to understand the why. Um, why do I need to worry about all this? A lot of people haven't got that, and it's nothing nasty about it. It's just
Mhm.
at some stage in your life you have to have a coaching or a training environment
Mhm.
to build that awareness. Um, it doesn't just come naturally. Quite often, it's in the playground in schools and stuff. You want to be part of the team, so you just ignore everything that's happening and you go and take part. But, safeguards and protection and skilling, awareness of, the the nature of, care and responsibility in your business, the nature of your job, your role in, and where it contributes to that, and how and so we talk about, having a clarity in your role, having clarity, in people's roles as to how they help each other, how they coach each other, and how they pass feedback. And that's not in terms of bullying or you're risking someone's job. It's just feedback on a regular basis. If you make feedback part of the job and not just a mechanism to crucify someone, the biggest problem we've had with, I believe, with the digital world is we're using feedback mechanisms that are presumed to be a system that someone can have a whip and beat someone up about. Well, what that does, it builds protectionism, which is just what you don't want. People will protect what they're doing and not contribute. And
Yeah,
that's not nasty. It's just, if you know you're going to get beaten up, you make sure you have that one little spreadsheet done the right
of
way
course.
so you
Mhm.
don't get beaten up.
Yeah.
But overall, that may not be a contributor for the business. It may be a blocker.
Mhm.
So again, we at ACI, we look at, fostering culture of that quality, and how it's used as a motivator to building business, building effective outcome. Too often what we see is we see massive critiques and praise about beautifully filled out spreadsheets. But we then come to people and say, well, what was the outcome? Did you achieve? And people don't really give you a good answer on that.
Yeah.
And I sort of say to them, I said, sooner the spreadsheet wasn't quite that good, but you could show me you'd achieved effective outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at that whole role clarity, the job clarity, the reporting clarity, and obviously that needs care, because there's a level of report for the individual and their personal development that shouldn't be publicized everywhere. So you need care of HR responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then the involvement of the team leader who looks after that person, how they communicate at the right level, and that is confidentiality of that communication is kept carefully, and within a culture and a business environment.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all those sort of environments, and people, once the people are feel that they're looked after by their company and their information is kept securely, and the information they deal with to do their work is in a workflow that is realistic, proactive, allows them to take part and contribute,
Mm-hmm.
or doesn't put them at massive risk.
Mm-hmm.
Once you build that culture, at ACI, that's what we aim to come in and review those practices and review the environments of where the people operate, and then review the operations to see how it contributes to the outcome. So typically we'll look at an organization or a person and say, here's what you do in the triangle. And then on the left, we'll look at, well, what do you bring into that? So a business, what do you bring in? Or an individual in your role that says you do this, what do you need to bring in to do your role? And what do you think your outcomes are or your outputs?
Mm-hmm.
And then we always review either side of that and say, what are the 10 enablers and enablers and constraints that you see? So we'll talk. We work with organizations and we talk with the individuals and get that enabler and constraints feedback. So if an organization can do the same thing, that's what we try and code. Take enablers, constraints, take feedback from your crew, and work out how you're going to use that feedback. And then the other massive critique then is thanking your people for that feedback and keeping them posted of what you've done with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other with a human, if they just are giving loads of feedback and nothing's being used,
Yeah.
the human basically then just gives you feedback just to satisfy the report.
Just for the sake of
and yeah, I mean it's interactiveness and that you as a leader or a business organization, you value that input from the people,
right.
and that's a hard thing to actually build and develop in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're
So
tying
hopefully
it back to competence and culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that sort of answers the thing.
Yeah, it is, and you're making it clearly culture as a motivator, making it part of the organization's routine.
Absolutely, it's also in the way you build a framework for a business.
Yeah.
And what quite often I don't see with businesses, and I think is a good generic for them to think about, is if you think about all the things you do in your business, you've got as projects, you've got the day-to-day stuff that your business has to do on a daily basis. And I put those across the top. Then next to that, I put the things you're expected to do as a business, but they don't happen on a day-to-day basis. They happen, and when they do happen, you're expected as a business to be able to do that. And then over on the right, I put the emergency stuff, all the potential
What if?
things that we used to have some anachronisms that I won't mention on this presentation, but
Mm-hmm.
what the process is over here.
Yeah.
And then down the left side in your plan, you put the positions in your business with their
Mm.
roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
And in that matrix, just put in each one of those who's the responsible person
Uh-huh.
and who are the two accountable people
Mm-hmm.
under each one of those things you've defined. And then who are the influencers? Who are the service providers? And a service provider is someone, if they're a blocker, I basically say, well, that person isn't a service provider.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
service provider is someone who says no to you, but gives
Mm-hmm.
you an alternative. So
Okay.
that's the role service provider. So, and influencers, they just have influence all over the place. And then
Mhm.
under each one of those, who's the power of veto? Who can override everything? So you do that matrix, and 99% of businesses don't do that. But if you can do that framework,
Mhm.
get that in place, then you can see the loading on your businesses and on the people. And
Mhm.
you can do change management by modifying things.
Mhm.
But also, I've used it quite often to reduce the number of meetings people have to go to.
Ah, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so under each one of those, there's one responsible and two accountables.
Mhm.
For each one of those, if you need a meeting, those are the only three people that need to be at that meeting.
Mhm.
Everyone else is BCC'd.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned to you, time ago, I said I managed to, one of my managers,
Mhm.
from 60 meetings a week, I brought them down to 5
Yeah.
by putting that system in place.
Yeah. So all
And
the
what
processes
we've done,
are detailed in that matrix.
yes, yeah, they're and it's a matrix that can be used for change management, can be used for
Mhm.
capability change development, and a whole load of things. And it's when I used to take over teams, and I didn't see that. I knew there was a big gap already.
Yeah. Not
And
everyone's doing
once,
it. Not everyone's doing
um,
it. I mean, the
not
best,
everyone's doing it. No, no, no,
uh-huh.
no.
Even though
And
the
but to
best,
get to actually place a holistic view of your business,
mhm.
or your operation or whatever,
Mhm.
it's worth doing as an exercise. Yeah,
Yeah, even if the best encryption won't actually save you if people don't understand why it matters or how to apply it responsibly. So,
yeah, yeah.
Marcus, for industries that are moving at breakneck speed, like tech, healthcare, how can organizations make sure their knowledge is secure, accessible, and usable for continuous improvement?
So when you've got tons and tons of information, tons and tons of situational changes, tons and tons of events,
Mm-hmm.
and then typically empowering people to play in I suppose, a culture of learning and collaboration, implementing structured knowledge management systems, event management systems, um, and allowing them vehicles to learn from experience, and having those not just vehicles to be beaten up. I think that's the danger nowadays we have with a lot of our digital systems, is they're almost beat up systems,
Mm-hmm.
and so people are worried about the spreadsheet that's going to go out listing what KPI they didn't do. And a lot of these KPIs are reporting KPIs for people 3 or 4 layers away. But the person on the job doing the stuff, that KPI should be being done by someone else, not by them.
Okay.
So secure access of their output, the right questions, who's maintaining the questions, do the questions relate to the business outcome or the operation outcome, rather than just being something that is there just to produce lots of reports for people producing reports.
Mm-hmm.
So if your people doing the reports are the key metric that makes everyone else do a report, you've got to question that and say, well, no,
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't be for the person doing the report to get lots of good marks. Did the person doing the job achieve an outcome that was in the business's favor?
Right.
And quite often, I put over the example when we were young, used to see a council worker digging a hole and three people watching.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you've got a council worker digging a hole and 20 people watching because they've all got digital devices.
Yeah.
You've got possibly in a lot of organizations too many middle to upper middle administration going on, not contributing to the outcome of the business.
Uh-huh.
So in the knowledge management side of games, why do you have so many people doing loads of reports all the time, where
Mm.
the actual report doesn't contribute to the outcome of the
Doesn't add
business?
up. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so we look at that, and the PDCA obviously is the concept, plan, do, check, act. How the people play in that environment, um, where continuous learning can be built up, and cross. The other one you heard from is the cross-functional environment.
Uh-huh.
If people are going to work together, what can they share? What are they allowed to share? So keeping a mindful eye on the information plus knowledge that if you share information and it causes outcome issues or problems because you haven't checked the information you're sharing as to it being credible and correct, you've got
Mm-hmm.
to be careful that you don't have your team giving the wrong information.
Yeah.
So as a you want to encourage, and I think in my notes to you, I sort of mentioned it's a fail fast mindset,
Mm-hmm.
um, which encourages experimentation, risk taking to a level, but risk taking to an awareness of that risk being taken.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if you have to, and then being able to talk about why you did that. So we used to call it the ability to let a person, and the ability to let a team have a go and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Not sit there and worried about doing it because all the regulations here on the left are so horrible that they'll just sit there and accept that they should, sink and just accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, well, no, why not try swimming? And this is
Yeah.
how you swim. And
Mm-hmm.
and um, and then recognition of um, a, positive outcomes and input and help should be encouraged as well. So um, that capability of an individual or a person that's helped you achieve something, um, work out some good ways that can be just a slap on the back or well done.
Yeah.
How do you reckon build that culture in someone? Um, then I guess the other one is we look at the knowledge management systems. Um, they the security of a framework or a structure is as vital now as it was before. You have to have a concept of what external and internal communications there needs to be,
Uh-huh.
what that framework should be, and this is what we at ACI we teach people and build those areas, but also the framework of a knowledge management system, the security of that knowledge, the classification of the knowledge, where it can be used, should be defined in a framework.
Mm-hmm.
The history, the outcomes, the events, all those things, correspondence in and out of the team and the organization
Yeah.
should be formalized in a structure. Your team library, where all your terms of reference are,
Mm-hmm.
which is your core knowledge management, should have a framework as to what the structure of that information is.
Yeah.
The people involved with that should be taught how to use it. And so you build that capability. Here's my core reference of what I refer to as a business, as an organization, as a team,
Uh-huh.
for my role, for my job. This is where I look at it. And my terms of reference should be in there.
Mm-hmm.
My output in terms of comms and my input to what I take in as comms
Mhm.
should be measured, and how do I sort my incoming information and my outgoing information?
Uh-huh.
Um, what logic should I put behind that? What is my company's mandate in terms of how I should deal with information? Um, and obviously, from a sales point of view, how do you teach your people to go with an offer,
Mhm.
um, an image of your company,
Yeah.
and not just hope that their salespeople, they're on commission, they should be able to do it. No, you've got to give them the vehicle. So
Mhm.
anyone going outside your business to work on jobs, whether they're sales, operations, or whatever, um, should be given a way of interacting and some messages they should be saying about your business when they're engaging. Because
Yeah.
every touch point like that is an opportunity to promote your business as well.
Mhm. Right.
So I hope that gives you a bit of an answer there.
Yeah, I actually like how comprehensive and grounded your approach is. I think many leaders will resonate with that, Marcus. Creating a culture of learning is so much more than holding a workshop, say, once a year. It's about
Absolutely.
it's about embedding curiosity and collaboration into everyday behavior. It's like the
Yes.
streamlined process, but into a more practical and detailed manner. And when
Yeah,
people are recognized, because you mentioned about recognition, and when they feel empowered to share insights, experiment, and even fail forward, that's when knowledge becomes a living, breathing part of the organization, I guess.
absolutely.
Not just
Absolutely.
something, not just something stored in a document nobody opens.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And as you say, not a persecution tool either.
Uh-huh.
You should want people to come to a meeting and know the parameters of contributing,
Right.
but
Uh-huh.
also teaching them how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
There's another part with people is what you need to listen for.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you at that meeting? What is the meeting aimed to achieve? If you're just there
Mm-hmm.
to listen because someone's ego makes it that way,
Right.
that's not a good reason to be at the
I
meeting.
know. Perfectly said. So let's look a little ahead, Marcus. How do you see knowledge management, especially with encryption and AI, evolving into a competitive advantage for organizations that get it right?
Um, well, one it allows people um, the opportunity to feel that when they contribute something,
Mm-hmm.
it will be listened to and be used as value.
Right.
But it will also teach the leadership that the people, when they contribute, they're trained to contribute relevancy,
Mm-hmm.
relevant stuff. So don't just ignore them because you don't think they're senior enough. That person's given you some information, listen to it,
Mm-hmm.
process it, analyze it, and do something with it. And then if you're not going to use it, just say thank you.
Right.
Thank that person for
Yeah.
contributing. Whether it's going to be used or not doesn't matter. But you want to encourage that enhanced decision making. Um, then, as you're going through that whole process, is looking at the talent retention, which has been dismissed, I think, over the last 20 odd years based on consultancy leverage. Now, we used to call it succession planning. In your business or your organization, have a concept of, if you get a junior in or other people in, what is the future career possibility for them through the organization?
Mhm. What's next?
So have a framework as to what that could be, but then have a system or a process of how do you encourage talent retention and don't just lose people because you haven't reacted to something. So being aware of your talent, being aware of the succession, and we call it in ACI, we call it success planning, because with the right people, the right team, if you nurture growth,
Yeah.
and they know, and I remember over some years where I'd forgotten about all this. going in and then being surprised running a team where I had to go and give someone the 30-year certificate. And as
Yeah.
a young late 30s sort of manager, I was a little bit surprised having to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then one session I had two 42-year certificates to give out.
Wow.
So companies that can encourage that um, succession planning through them,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we've done a lot of over the last 20 years. We've done a lot of destruction of that methodology
Mm-hmm.
at the expense of because you have capability coming up. If they're youngsters, you want to keep them trained, and those that want to stay with you and grow, keep them in there.
Yeah, I remember your story about a carpenter.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. The 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 carpenter was in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Carpenter just wanted to do carpentry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they just want to do it and perform as a carpenter over years, don't discourage that. But at certain points, give them um,
Opportunity.
capability to do other things or options to have a go. Look, at 8 years down the track, that carpenter may want to do a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a slot in their generic career plan
Mm-hmm.
where you as a business will pay for that for them.
Yeah.
So that encourages retention, it encourages succession planning, it encourages loyalty to your company and a feeling of team aspiration.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Obviously, the thing amongst youngsters when they come in and they see people who've got that many years, it's a challenge and it's scary and it's easy for the youngsters to try and put people down who've got too much experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I also rationalize about age. Age isn't an issue. I mean, I say the managers who ran Nelson, Admiral Nelson,
Mm-hmm.
78, 81, and 84 years of age.
Wow.
This is in the 1800s.
Ah.
So age has only been made a problem in recent years
Uh-huh.
because of short circuiting younger generations wanting to get rid of anyone who's got this experience up here because
Mm-hmm.
they think they've got all the digital devices and it can replace them nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of your team building structure and your encouragement of growth, development, maturity needs to be brought back in again to build knowledge management and to build the safety and encryption on information.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But to build the age up, you need to give them a system to grow them as well. So
Mm-hmm. Growing with the
if you
company.
have absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and so in your organization, having that framework of being means that your knowledge management grows automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Means that your awareness by the people or the team members means that their behavior will encourage encryption, will
Mm-hmm.
encourage security by the way they behave. And as leaders, you need to develop an awareness of that.
Mm-hmm. And
And then obviously, the biggest thing across all of this knowledge management and whatever on a day-to-day basis is the interaction security of the comms link
mm-hmm.
of the location where the meeting's happening, the
Yeah.
location and the environment in which that meeting happens. If you have the chat in the wrong place, even though it's a meeting, who knows what can be given away
Yeah.
and lost to other people
Something
listening
could
in.
go wrong.
Oh, the frequency nowadays of sitting on a bus and just hearing people on their phones,
Mm-hmm.
and even people with their laptops open and screens
Mm-hmm.
doing confidential stuff. And the amount of stuff like that I've seen, I'm just looking at it, wow. Where I've sat on a bus and I've had a minister of somewhere's wife sitting on the bus at the top of her voice telling the person on the phone what the flight number was and what his passport ID was.
Uh-huh.
And we're sitting on the bus going, really? So
Mm-hmm.
teaching people awareness of, don't just chat and
Mm-hmm.
think that you're incredible. If
Right.
you're in the wrong environment, ears and eyes watching around
Mm-hmm.
you
That's a
can,
great reminder.
Yes.
Really. Uh-huh. You know, with what you elaborated, Marcus, I can see how companies that treat encryption as strategic, not just protective, are the ones
Yep.
that lead the future of trust-based innovation. And, you know, this is another information field episode with you. Thank you so much for making it clear to all of us that encryption is about discipline. It's also
Yes.
about weaving
Yes.
security into the DNA of how people think, share, and grow. I mean, being aware of
Yep.
your surrounding is a great
Absolutely.
example.
Don't assume. Don't
Right.
assume.
And
Yeah.
knowledge management used to be about storing information, just storing information. But now it's about protecting integrity, both of data and, of course, of people. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time and effort to be here today.
No, thank you, Miles. Thanks for the time.
It's a pleasure. If this chat sparked ideas on how to strengthen your organization's knowledge systems or simply rethink how you handle information security, head over to aciglobal.com.au. And that's a wrap for today's episode of X Rays. Thank you guys for tuning in and for keeping us on air with your curiosity and support. Until our next one, this has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with X Rays.